Next, we will be talking about stock exchange. The increase in initial public offering IPO during the last 2 years has made the Indonesian stock exchange IDX among the largest stock markets in Southeast Asia. Indonesia has even taken over Singapore as the largest stock market in ASEAN.
The Indonesian Stock Exchange, or IDX, continues to dominate the equity market in Southeast Asia following the sharp increase in initial public offering, or IPO, in the region's largest economy in the first quarter of this year. Across Southeast Asia, IPO activity appeared encouraging, with 51 deals raising $1.4 billion in proceeds, up from $1 billion from 29 IPOs in the first quarter of 2022. As stated in the Ernst & Young Global IPO Trend, in the first quarter of 2023, Indonesia was the most active in the first quarter of the year, with 30 IPOs raising $828 million, followed by Thailand, with 10 IPOs raising $322 million, Malaysia with 10 IPOs raising $238 million, and Singapore with 1 IPO raising $15 million. The latest data from the Financial Authority Agency, or OJK, shows that there were as many as 33 IPOs as of May, raising 31.68 trillion rupiah, or about $2.12 billion. The OJK records that there are 63 IPOs in the pipeline as of the end of April. The planned IPOs are expected to raise 61.70 trillion rupiah. The Indonesia Stock Exchange performed quite well in 2022, despite global economic uncertainties during the year. While price indices in other Asian stock markets ended the year lower, the Jakarta Price Index closed at 4% higher during the year. It made the Jakarta Composite Index the best performer in the Asian region. According to the report in the Ernst & Young Global IPO Trends in the first quarter of 2023, over the last 4 years, Indonesia has seen the total value of equity issuances increased from 15 trillion rupiah in 2019 to 33 trillion in 2022. In fact, in 2022, the country's capital markets recorded the largest number of issuance in its history with 59 IPOs. The most notable of them being the public listing of tech firm Gotoh, which raised 14 trillion rupiah in its equity offering. This year, as of the first quarter, Indonesia's IPO market saw up to 30 IPOs, with issuance value ranging from Mitra Tirta Buana's $1.91 billion and Pertamina Geothermal's $596 million. Meanwhile, based on data submitted by the IDX in Indonesia's Economic and Capital Market Development presentation in mid-May, in terms of market capitalization, Indonesia is ranked 9th among the markets of other major countries in the world. Indonesia recorded a market capitalization of $634 billion, beating Singapore's $623 billion and Thailand's $592 billion, CNBC reported in May 15th this year. The Indonesian stock market is optimistic that the Indonesian stock market still has a lot of potential for development compared to several exchanges in other countries. According to data submitted by the IDX on Indonesia's Economic and Capital Market Development presentation, there are 853 companies currently listed on the stock exchange. This makes Indonesia in 9th place in the number of listed companies in stock exchanges in the region, such as Thailand and Singapore. However, the exchange transaction value at the Indonesian Stock Exchange is ranked in the 11th place. Indonesia recorded an average daily transaction of $664 billion, equal to Singapore's. From the data above, it can be seen that Indonesia is still at the top compared to other ASEAN countries. Even so, with its relatively high economic growth, Indonesia still has the opportunity to grow further. Indonesia's economy grew faster than expected. 5.03% on a yearly basis in the first 3 months of the year. The first quarter growth beats market estimates of a 4.95% growth after a 5.01% in the fourth quarter of 2022. So it would not be an exaggeration if in the next few years we hope Indonesia will become one of the largest stock markets in Asia.
The Indonesian Stock Exchange has become the largest stock market in ASEAN in the last 2 years, following the sharp increase in initial public offering, or IPO, during the 2 years period. It is an honor to have with us this afternoon Pak Nafan Aji Gusta, Senior Analyst at Mirae Asset Sekuritas. Hello, Bapak. It's good to have you here. And Pak Nafan will talk about the prospect of the Indonesian stock market to become among the largest in Asia, not just in ASEAN. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Pak Afan. So, as we know, the Indonesian Stock Exchange performances has been quite impressive for the last 2 years, as reflected in the rapid increase in IPO. As a person, Pak Nafan, who has been engaged in the stock market for so many years now, how do you see the progress of the Indonesian stock market so far?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lucia. First of all, when we talk about investors, total amount of investors, we see that that it increased 10 times from 2017 until December 22. It increased 10 times from 1.1 million investors using single ID SID into 10.3 million investors. So that's about around 10 times. Okay, and as of May 2030, we see that that the investors increased up to 11 million, 11 million, from the end of 2022. Okay, so that's amount increase of 7%, right? Okay, and then when we talk about market capitalization, in 2022, its market cap reached around 9,500 trillion. It increased around 15.2% year on year, which was around 8,256 trillion. Okay, and when we talk about IPO list in IDX, since 2020, until 2022, it increased, it increased exponentially, from 51 until 59, in 2020. That number became the all-time high record, as well as being among the most in ASEAN. Okay, so I believe that the Indonesian Stock Exchange performance has been quite really impressive during the last 2 years.
Right, Pak Nafan. So you mentioned that our Indonesian Stock Exchange has increased exponentially over the past few years. What do you think are the factors contributing to this significant increase, actually?
Okay, thank you. Well, I believe that Indonesia has great opportunities. We see that our economy is stable, around 5% of growth, after the COVID pandemic, and also since 2020, we have successfully replaced Thailand and became the largest stock market in ASEAN. Okay.
What do you think is the main potential for Indonesia to actually become the largest in Asia?
Okay, I believe that Indonesia has good growth in terms of economy and also political landscape, because our political domestic is relatively stable, and also its valuation, its market valuation. When we talk about GCI's market valuation, we have the lowest PE comparing other Asian stock markets here. We in PE we have 6.14 times, yeah, which is in terms of valuation we are cheaper and also interesting to invest, yeah. When we compare to other peers, we know that Nikkei is relatively expensive, around 20.25 times of PE, yeah. And in terms of Southeast Asia, we are around the highest is set, yeah, from Thailand, 17.22 times, yeah. And in terms of volume, yeah, aside of China, yeah, we are the highest, around 10.93 billion, yeah. In terms of market cap, this is the most important. Our index market cap is relatively bigger compared to other peers, especially Shanghai Composite Index, which is around 2,000, around 2,600, yeah, around 2,600. Okay, and then our members, yeah, listed in the IDX, yeah, is around 836, yeah, which is most highest, yeah, one of the most highest in Asia, and in ASEAN we are the highest.
So would you say in the near future that we have a big potential to be the largest in Asia?
Yes, indeed. Okay. Because I believe that in terms of the second half in 2023, there will be more and more companies are seeking in IPO due to companies want to seek funding, yeah, in the capital market, not only major state enterprises, yeah, but as a whole company, yeah. Besides in 2024, I know there will be elections, yeah, but this factor would boost our domestic consumption and purchasing power. Thus, I believe that in the future we have so much potential, yeah, in boosting the IPO and so on. But the headwinds are, that we are facing global tightening monetary policy, especially from the Fed, which is affecting Bank Indonesia's interest rate policy. Yeah, so that means it will also influence other companies' interest in IPO. Yeah, well, not only IPO but also issuing bonds. Yeah, which is relatively closer, yeah, or related, yeah, to interest rates and inflation. Yeah. Besides of that, we are facing the global economic slowdown, which also affect the pessimism of market players, and then the prospect of IPO companies depends on the valuation. Yeah, it depends on the valuation of the company in terms of IPO. But I suggest that investors must also pay attention. Yeah. Which sectors are prospective, yeah, in terms of IPO, because we have the data that based on the improving sector, we have IDX technology, IDX infrastructure, and IDX financial, whereas the leading sector we have IDX consumer cyclicals, IDX property, IDX consumer non-cyclicals, and IDX transportation. Yeah, and in the lagging sector, yet there's so much potential to generate growth, energy and basic.
Right. Now, Pak Nafan, you mentioned about the big companies just now. The listing of the big companies will be the key to make the Indonesian stock exchange among the largest in the Asian region. Do you think there are still many other big companies, such as major state enterprises, that have the potential to enter the stock market in Indonesia? Okay,
I know in 2022 we have GoTo, which has the largest market cap, around 455 trillion, and among the big five back then, in IPO since 2020. Right now, I believe we will have AMMN, yeah, which will generate additional for our market caps increasement around 120 trillion, more than that level, yeah. So that means that IMM will contribute the largest and significant amount of IPO in 2023, aside of other sectors. But I believe that other sectors are also potential, yeah, in terms of gaining the amount of IPO in order to expand their own business, yeah, and generating opportunities, as long as they can maintain good corporate governance, yeah, in order to increase the trust, yeah, from our investors.
That's right. Now, let's talk about the foreign investors now.
Okay.
Foreign investors are also the main drivers in the growth of stock market. How important is actually the role of foreign investors in the Indonesian stock market so far?
Okay, I know that foreign investors are also seeking our forecast here. If our economic forecast is relatively stable, around almost 5%, despite of a global economic slowdown, then they will also remain interested to invest in Indonesia. I believe that our strong fundamental macroeconomic is a key for that, and also our investors, foreign investors consistently remain in an overweight position, especially in the banking sector, because when we see the trend of the IDX financials, from year before, we look that the trend is relatively uptrend. So that I believe that investors will also accumulate the stocks from the financial sectors. And besides of that, I believe that our election spending will also supporting domestic demand, which is essential, and because based on the data that our GCI year to date, we are corrected in around 3.08% compared to other global indices, since that GCI has attractive value around 6.14 times of P. Therefore, we have GCI has the potential to grow, because of the accumulation on foreign investors.
Pak Nafan, considering our current state of economy right now and the election year coming, as a closing statement, what do you think can be done by the financial authority to make our stock market more attractive, not just to foreign investors, but also to domestic investors?
Okay, I believe that first of all, increasing financial literacy, which is very important, next, supporting domestic economic recovery, because I believe this is also important for boosting our domestic demand, in order to increase the amount of investors investing in our stock market. Mitigating external risk, it's also important, because when we are facing the global economic slowdown, thus maintaining stability of the financial service sector is also the key. And then strengthening the infrastructure of our stock market. Okay. Last but not least, supporting law enforcement and improving good governance in the financial sector.
That's a nice closing. Thank you so much, Pak Nafan Aji Gusta, Senior Analyst from Mirae Asset, for your insights on Indonesian stock markets.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak.